The music stopped. Dead silence. Then my father's hand cracked across my face so hard that 200 wedding guests gasped in unison. I'm Eleanor Harper. I'm 30 years old, and my life just changed forever. Blood filled my mouth as I stared at my father. Richard Harper, retired Marine, family patriarch. His bourbon breath hit my face as he snarled, "You selfish little brat. After everything we've sacrificed for you." My mother Marlene stood frozen, not worried about me, but about the scene we were making. The photographers had stopped clicking. Every eye in that ballroom was on us, but you know what? I wasn't looking at them. I was looking past my father's rage-filled face to see my brother Nathan at the head table, still in his perfect tuxedo. Sitting next to his new wife Collie, he was smiling. Actually smiling. Let me back up. 5 minutes before this explosion, my parents cornered me by the dessert table with a demand that would change everything. "Hand over the penthouse," my mother said, arranging cupcakes like she was asking me to pass the salt. "You're just one person, Elena. Nathan and Collie need somewhere to build their life together. Be reasonable, reasonable." That's what they always called it when they stole from me to give to him. I said no, simple as that. I bought that place with my own money. I live there. They can find their own place, and that's how I ended up tasting blood at my brother's wedding, standing there with my cheek on fire and my family staring at me like I was the problem. Something clicked into place. Not broke, clicked. Like a lock finally opening, I smiled, not from happiness, but from pure, crystal clear understanding. "You're going to regret this," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "All of you." Then I walked out. My heels echoed like gunshots on that marble floor, and not a single person followed me. The cold air hit my face, but I didn't shiver. I kept walking past the valet, past the flower arrangements my mother obsessed over for months, past all the guests pretending not to stare. My hands were steady. Something inside me had shifted, not broken, just settled. Here's what they didn't know about that penthouse they wanted so badly. When I was 24, I decided I was done living by their rules. I worked 60-hour weeks, no vacations, no social life, night shifts, weekends, whatever it took. I wrote code for banks during the day and freelanced at night, building boring billing systems that nobody wanted to learn but everybody needed. I worked out of this little cafe called Juniper and Black. Long wooden tables, harbor view, and a barista named Mark who never asked questions when I showed up looking exhausted. That place became my sanctuary. 3 years later, I had my down payment. No help from anyone. Not from my father who said I should be investing in a future with a man. Not from my mother who called the penthouse too cold, too modern, too far from family. I moved in alone and made every corner perfect. That penthouse was the first space in my life that was truly, completely mine. Meanwhile, Nathan had bounced through 5 failed business ideas. The latest one involved drones delivering coffee. Before that, it was NFTs for dogs. I'm not kidding. Every time he crashed and burned, my parents bailed him out. He lived rent-free in a condo they owned, calling himself Between Ventures, but somehow I was the selfish one. They never noticed when I stopped showing up for holidays, when my texts got shorter, when I started saying no to Sunday dinners and phone calls that always started with "we were thinking" and ended with "Nathan could use your help." They thought I was being quiet because I had nothing to say. Truth is, I stayed quiet because I was learning, and I knew someday I'd need them to forget how much I'd been paying attention. After the wedding disaster, I didn't go home. The penthouse felt too loaded with memories to expose. Instead, I drove to Juniper and Black. Mark was there, cleaning glasses with that same calm rhythm he always had. Mid-30s, patient eyes, the kind of guy who listened more than he talked. He looked up when I walked in, and his face changed. "You okay?" he asked, already reaching for my usual mug. "My father slapped me," I said, walking to my window table. "At my brother's wedding, because I wouldn't give them my penthouse." Mark didn't say anything. He just brought over black coffee with 2 sugars and a chocolate muffin. On the house, he said quietly. You look like you need it. I sat there staring out at the harbor lights, and for the first time since leaving that ballroom, I let myself feel everything. But I wasn't crying from hurt. I was crying from pure, burning rage. For years, I'd done everything right, earned my place, asked for nothing, and this was my reward? Being humiliated in public because I wouldn't hand over what I'd built with my own sweat. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted an asset they could cash in whenever Nathan needed something. Somewhere between that cooling coffee and the untouched muffin, a new kind of clarity settled over me. If they could take from me this easily, what would they try next? I opened my laptop right there in the cafe. My hands were perfectly steady as I started to plan. The next morning, my doorman called before my first cup of coffee. Miss Harper, your parents are here. Of course they were. No announcement, no permission asked. I dressed carefully. Dark slacks, crisp blouse, hair pulled back. Clean lines, quiet power. When I met them in the hallway, my father was already pacing, jaw clenched like he was still that Marine sergeant who expected the world to snap to attention. Where do you think you're going? My mother demanded, voice sharp under those pearls. We need to discuss your behavior last night. Work, I replied, locking my door. Some of us actually have jobs. My father stepped close, grabbing my arm. Don't you take that tone after your little performance yesterday? I pulled away, calm as glass. Touch me again and I'll call security. He hesitated. I didn't. There are cameras, you know, at the country club. High resolution, multiple angles, that stopped him cold. My mother went pale. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. Try me. I turned toward the elevator. Oh, and change the locks if you want. It won't matter. Everything valuable is already in secure storage. As the elevator door slid shut, I watched them blink in confusion, like they were just realizing I wasn't the same girl they used to corner in the kitchen and guilt into giving up my weekends, my money, my silence. This time, they didn't follow. That was their first mistake. I didn't answer their calls. Not that day, not the next. The messages were predictable. My mother tried guilt. Elena, stop this nonsense. You're embarrassing the family. Then Nathan weighed in. Don't be so dramatic. Sis, we can work this out like adults. Finally, Collie. He deserves that penthouse more than you. He's starting a family. I read each message once, then muted the whole thread. Instead, I went back to Juniper and Black. Same table, same coffee. Mark gave me a silent nod and left me to my work. This time, I opened 3 tabs on my laptop. One for my lawyer, one for my financial advisor, one for a real estate listing I'd bookmarked months ago but never pursued. Hollow Shore Residences, luxury oceanfront apartments. Nathan and Collie had toured there in April, raving about the glass balconies and heated floors. They couldn't afford it obviously, but they'd been begging my parents to co-sign for one of the corner units. By sunset, I'd submitted a formal offer on the entire building, not one unit, the whole complex. That night, I pushed a major code update to a private project I'd been working on, a property management platform. The same idea Nathan had once tried to steal for his failed startup. By the time I closed my laptop, phase 1 was complete. They thought I was spiraling, that I'd come crawling back eventually. But I wasn't falling apart. I was building something. Not revenge, not exactly. A boundary made of brick, steel, fiber optic cable, and legally binding contracts. They wanted my home. I was about to show them what I really owned. 10 days of silence. Well, not complete silence. There were still messages from blocked numbers, nervous calls from mutual friends. Nathan sent a cousin to check on me. Collie posted vague social media jabs about entitled people who don't support family. I ignored all of it. I was busy. My offer on Hollow Shore Residences had been accepted. The paperwork was moving fast. My lawyer, Rachel, efficient as always, had flagged every clause. The complex would be mine within the month, but that wasn't what kept me up at night. The real discovery was much, much worse. Years ago, when Nathan was launching his crypto platform Oryx, he came to me for help, said he needed someone to review his technical architecture. I was naive enough to actually help. I shared interface mockups, reviewed his code, gave him genuine advice. He took everything, rebranded my work, built a system that was 80% my original code but poorly modified, untested, and completely unsecure. When Oryx collapsed last year, he blamed market volatility. But now that I had access to his old servers, he never changed his admin passwords, because of course he didn't. I found something much worse than bad coding: records, shell corporations, fake consulting invoices, large transfers to a very familiar business name, Harper and Associates LLC, my father's side company. They hadn't just stolen from me. They laundered investor money through the family name. I called Rachel immediately. If I file this with the SEC, it'll destroy them both. She was quiet for a moment. Do you want that? I want them to stop. I want them to understand I'm not afraid of them anymore. The next day, I sent one email to my mother. Subject line: we should talk. She showed up that morning. Marlene Harper, pearls tight at her throat, face drawn even tighter. She tried to open with tears. I let her perform for exactly 30 seconds. Then I turned my laptop toward her and showed her the financial records. She stopped mid-sob. You don't understand. No, I said, voice perfectly steady. You don't understand. Fraud isn't a mistake, and neither is raising a son who thinks stealing from family is strategy. Her hands trembled in her lap. I closed the laptop gently. We were just getting started. My mother sat there for a long time. The tears had stopped. The soft, wounded dignity act had vanished completely. What remained was pure calculation. She wasn't here to heal anything. She was here to contain the damage. What do you want, Elena? She asked finally. Her voice was tight, controlled. I want peace, I said. No more calls. No more flying monkeys. No more social media updates from Collie about how I abandoned the family. She blinked. The penthouse is mine. Legally, morally, factually. It's off limits. My finances, my work, my future all off limits. I looked at her then. Really looked at this woman who had always chosen silence over truth, etiquette over protection, who taught me that being a daughter meant knowing when to give up what you loved quietly. With a smile, I gave her none of that now, and if we don't agree to that, I continued, I have documents showing Dad's involvement in Nathan's fraud. Server logs, payment trails, names, screenshots, plus video of him slapping me in public with 200 witnesses. You destroy your own family? She whispered. No, I said. You did that when you told me to give up my home. When Dad raised his hand. When Nathan watched and smiled. Her face crumpled slightly, like something inside had shifted, but not enough to reach her mouth. I closed the laptop. The sound echoed louder than expected. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable, I said, standing. Just distance. Just silence. She didn't respond, just gathered her purse and walked out. I stood by the window for a long time after, watching her disappear into a black sedan. No slammed doors, no shouted names, only quiet, and for once, it belonged to me. 1 week passed. Then 2. I didn't hear from Marlene or Richard. Nathan didn't post his usual social media updates. But the silence wasn't peace, it was pressure building behind a dam. The first crack came in an email from my real estate agent. Subject: eviction notice processed, Unit 14C. Nathan and Collie had stopped paying rent. 2 months delinquent. They'd ignored notices, blamed miscommunication with the leasing office. What they didn't know, what nobody in that building knew, was that I was the new owner. The name on their final eviction notice was mine. I didn't gloat. I didn't interfere. I just let the process unfold exactly as it was designed to. Quiet, legal, permanent. They moved out in complete silence. No Instagram stories, no dramatic goodbyes. Just one text from Nathan the night they left. Mom told me what you're doing. You can't prove anything. I stared at that message for a while. Then I attached a screenshot server logs bearing his full name, time-stamped file access, account IDs. I sent it without a word. His reply came within minutes. What do you want? 3 words. Total distance. He tried one last time. You've changed. I looked at that message and wrote back. No, I just stopped pretending. Then I silenced the thread and archived the entire conversation. That night, I walked out onto my penthouse balcony. The city lights were soft, almost kind. I thought about all those years I'd spent trying to be good enough, useful enough, quiet enough. Now I didn't need to be anything but free. They tried to take my home and ended up losing their own. It was a Tuesday evening when the knock came. Not urgent, not angry, just hesitant. I checked the security camera. Richard Harper stood alone in the hallway, shoulders squared out of habit, but his hands kept adjusting his jacket like he didn't know what to do with them. I could have ignored it, but curiosity won. I opened the door but didn't step aside. He looked older than I remembered. His jaw wasn't set in that familiar rigid line. His eyes didn't scan the room like he owned it. 5 minutes, he said. That's all I'm asking. I said nothing, but I didn't close the door either. They're moving back in with us, he said finally. Nathan and Collie couldn't keep the apartment. I know, I replied, voice flat. I own the building. He blinked like the sentence didn't compute. Then something behind his eyes gave way. You, he said quietly. But how? Because I'm good at what I do, Dad. I always was. You just never noticed. He looked down. The silence stretched between us, not hostile, not awkward, just real. Your mother misses you, he said. We all do. No, I said. You miss having someone to push around, someone to sacrifice for Nathan. That person doesn't live here anymore. He nodded slowly. I was wrong, he said. About a lot of things. The slap, the way we treated you, covering for Nathan. I've lost everything because of it. It was true. After I'd shown Marlene what I had, Richard had been forced to step down from his company's board. The whispers in his social circles had started. His clean reputation was no longer clean. I didn't release anything, I said. The threat was enough. He looked up then, really looked at me. You haven't lost everything, I added. You still have your golden child. Isn't that what matters? He exhaled, shaky. We made mistakes. No, I said. You made choices. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Your mother wanted you to have this. It's an invitation. Her birthday dinner. I took it but didn't open it. I'll think about it. And I closed the door. Not loud, not fast, but with finality. I held that envelope for 3 days before opening it. No note, just cream cardstock with my mother's handwriting, delicate cursive that always looked more like performance than communication. Please join us for Marlene Harper's 63rd birthday dinner. Family only, family. I almost laughed, but I didn't throw it away. The night of the dinner, I arrived late, 15 minutes after everyone had been seated. I wore black, not dramatic, not mourning, just neutral, present but untouchable. Nathan and Collie sat in the far corner. Their clothes, once designer, were now clearly department store. She didn't meet my eyes. He barely looked up. My father stayed sober. He nodded when I entered. Nothing more. My mother smiled too wide, too quickly, like the room might shatter if I didn't play along, but I didn't perform. I observed. No one asked me questions. No one gave me orders. And when I left early quietly, without fanfare, no one followed me. A few months later, I hosted a dinner of my own, not in their house, not family only, on my balcony, in my penthouse. Wine, laughter, the sharp scent of roasted garlic, soft jazz playing low in the background. Mark came, of course. So did Rachel, my lawyer, and Jenna, the real estate agent who helped me secure the building. People who never expected me to give up pieces of myself just to earn a seat at their table. We toasted as the city lit up beneath us. To Elena, Mark said, raising his glass, who turned a slab into an empire. I smiled. Not from victory, but from peace, not silence, not surrender. Choice, they tried to take my home, but instead, they gave me my freedom.